There have been concerns that have begun to mount dramatically over the presence of foreign military forces on the continent. Now, more than a dozen countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, China, as well as India, have established military outposts to protect their interests here. Now, recent developments surrounding extrajudicial killings of terrorist suspects in Kenya and the search for a new home for the U.S. military's Africa Command have raised the stakes further. Now, joining us to discuss the proliferation of these forces as well as the local drivers of their presence is author and University of the Free State academic, Professor Theo Neethling. Good to have you with us this afternoon, Prof. Now, the proliferation of the U.S. military and other foreign operations in Africa is by now the worst-kept secret. Why, in your view, is there a sudden interest in the operations of these foreign forces?
Well, yes, thank you very much. Great to be with you. Indeed, for many people, for observers, researchers working in this field, it is no secret. It is actually well known among security analysts that, for instance, the United States has 7,000 military personnel on rotational deployment in Africa, carrying out joint operations with African forces against extremists or jihadists. Then also, it's no secret that 2,000 American soldiers are involved in training missions in no less than 40 African countries, 40. Well, like the United States, France is also involved, either deploying military forces, having established military bases in several African countries. And France's military presence in Africa is actually quite substantial, with more than 7,500 personnel currently serving in Africa, most notably in the Sahel region. And if I can just add a bit more, the presence of foreign military forces in Africa is also not limited to Western powers. China has been particularly active with its military presence, especially in the Horn of Africa. In fact, if you look at the facts and figures, you find that from 2008 to 2018, the Chinese Navy deployed about 26,000 military personnel in a variety of maritime security operations. And then we also know, just to complete the picture, that China's inaugurated its first overseas military base in the world, in Djibouti, in Africa. And this followed the establishment of the U.S. Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti in 2003, the U.S. Expeditionary Base, which was established alongside bases belonging to, listen to this, the French, the Italian, the Spanish, the German, and Japanese militaries. And then lastly, it is also well known that India is another Asian country of relevance here, especially known for an increased naval presence in the Western Indian Ocean. And then two Middle Eastern countries with a notable presence now are Turkey and the United Arab Emirates. So foreign forces from various regions now have a notable footprint in Africa.
Now, Prof, Africa is battling heightened terror risks in the West. You know, we've spoken about some of these. There's Mali, there's Nigeria. We see, threats in Cameroon, in Chad, but also in the East, in the form of Kenya. Ethiopia, there's the Al-Shabaab, and now in Southern Africa with Mozambique, and this is posing a potential threat to South Africa as well. Now, is the presence of AFRICOM and around 13 other foreign militaries indeed the much-needed antidote to the threat of terror on the continent?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying we need the long-awaited African standby force, which is officially operational, but largely on paper. Hence, foreign forces are in some cases filling a void in the African security landscape. I think, arguably, successful U.S. drone attacks in Somalia, you referred to Somalia, have helped reduce Al-Shabaab's spoiler capacity in that region in efforts towards peace. And some people will argue that French troops have contributed significantly in building the capacity of national armies in the Sahel and driving out jihadists from northern Mali. But I think there's a downside to this foreign military presence. The competition among the various foreign militaries to influence responses to challenges in Africa's hotspots has led to a multiplicity of activities that actually, I would say, overcrowd the security landscape, especially in the Sahel and the Horn of Africa. Examples, just one, examples are the emergence of ad hoc regional response structures with foreign support, and one, I think, is the joint force of the Group of Five of the Sahel, in short, the G5 Sahel. It's a regional African force supported by France, Germany, and European powers. Now, just lastly in this regard, I think one can add by saying that such regional responses emerge from the willingness of some African states to address certain security challenges outside the framework of the AU's peace and security structure. At the same time, I think these responses such as those by the G5 Sahel, in my opinion, have lessened the urgency to operationalize the AU's regional security structures.
And talking about the African Union, Prof, there are reports that suggest that the AU is actually very concerned about the presence of these foreign forces. What would you say informs their concern?
Yes, the increasing presence of not only Western powers but Asian powers in Djibouti points to at least one major risk, and that is the potential destabilizing impact that growing rivalry among major global powers may have on the continent. For instance, rivalry between the US and China is playing out in that small country, Djibouti, where the two countries are actually competing to outpace each other and have accused each other of spying. Now, such developments raise serious concerns as to the long-term outcomes of continued tension between global powers, most notably China and the US, and also, I think, in addition, between regional powers such as Japan and China. There is always a risk, I think, that this might be turning Africa into a proxy turf for extra-regional competition. And of course, Africa should not and cannot fall victim to a rivalry of the big powers. Now, having said that, just to complete this picture, the latest info is that Mozambique has just turned to the European Union for help in dealing with a bloody insurgency in the northern parts, the Cabo Delgado province. On Thursday, a couple of days ago, Mozambique had written to the EU Foreign Policy Chief to ask for training of its armed forces to battle the insurgency, simply because the Mozambican forces are weak and battling. So African governments are involving foreign actors. This is an important point. African governments are involving foreign actors in their security challenges as much as foreign forces are engaging in African affairs. And I think that must be of concern to the AU.
And you've mentioned some of the reasons, but I'd like us to perhaps look at other reasons that may not be so obvious. Reasons that Africa has so many foreign military services on the continent. You mentioned France, you've mentioned China, Turkey, as well as the UAE.
Well, broadly speaking, foreign military presence in Africa is inter alia driven by AU member states leasing their territories to foreign powers for military bases or whatever, mainly for domestic economic gain, also for security reasons. Djibouti, for instance, generates more than $300 million annually from the foreign military presence in that country by the many foreign powers. Foreign involvement is also sometimes driven by African states seeking external help in dealing with serious security challenges, as we are now seeing in the case of northern Mozambique, where there's no military assistance from SADC. And then other African states, such as former French colonies, have been hosting French military bases as a result of bilateral military agreements signed after independence. Ensuring regime security, very important for the incumbent governments or government, and then also securing French economic interests in the host country and the region are just some of the principal motives for such arrangements. But let me give you one final angle here, which is also an interesting one, I think. In the Central African Republic, mining rights were sold at a fraction of their worth in exchange for military trainers and arms sales from Moscow, specifically involving the Kremlin-backed Wagner mercenaries or paramilitary group. Similar developments played out in other African states as well. And furthermore, it's been reported very recently that a dozen Russian jet fighters have been sent to Libya to conduct ground strikes and other combat missions in support of Russian mercenaries, fighting alongside a beleaguered commander in his campaign to oust the government in Tripoli. And these are just some of the current, I would say, unhappy realities in Africa.
And I guess we'll have to leave it at that, and unfortunately, for today, Prof. But perhaps in this 30 seconds, why is it that the AU is not, taking the lead in this, in providing the military support that's needed, instead of looking to foreign countries and foreign bodies to do that?
Well, you say 30 seconds, let me try. I think since the African Union made a decision in 2003, and that is to come up with an African standby force at the continental level with 5 regional forces, but there were many, many difficulties that became clear. And in fact, the creation of such a force based on 5 regional standby forces is going with tough issues and many difficulties relating to logistical and financial challenges. And I think these challenges remain. As long as these challenges remain, you will have foreign actors filling a void or trying to do that or having the opportunity to do so.